Imagine this. You pull into a gas station on an ordinary afternoon, swipe your card, and watch that clear liquid flow into your tank. A few minutes later, you're back on the road, engine humming smoothly. Most of us do this without a second thought. But here's the quiet mystery, that everyday fuel didn't come out of the ground ready to use. What arrives at refineries is thick, black, sticky crude oil, a raw mixture formed from ancient sea life millions of years ago. It smells like sulfur and asphalt combined, and you definitely wouldn't want to pour it straight into your car. So, how does this dark, messy liquid become the precise fuels and materials that power our modern world? Today on Decoding Everyday, we step inside the refinery to find out. Crude oil first reaches the refinery through pipelines or massive tankers. Inside these sprawling complexes, the process begins with the single most important step: fractional distillation. Think of it like a very tall, very hot sorting machine. The crude is pumped into a furnace and heated to around 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to vaporize most of it, but not so hot that everything breaks apart. That vapor then rises into a towering distillation column, sometimes 40 meters tall, where the temperature gradually cools as you move upward. Each type of hydrocarbon molecule has its own boiling point. The lightest ones, the building blocks for propane and butane, stay gaseous longest and are drawn off at the very top. A little lower, gasoline vapors condense. Lower still, you get kerosene for jet fuel, then diesel, heavier gas oils, and finally the thickest residue at the bottom that will become asphalt or lubricating oil. It's physics doing the heavy lifting. Lighter molecules naturally rise higher before they cool and turn back into liquid. One barrel of typical crude might give you about 45% gasoline, 25% diesel, and the rest split among jet fuel, petrochemicals, and heavy products. But here's where it gets interesting. That first separation is elegant, yet it doesn't match what the world actually needs. Modern society burns far more light fuels, especially gasoline, than crude naturally provides. So refineries have to reshape the heavier fractions. This is where cracking comes in. Imagine those heavy hydrocarbon chains as long strings of carbon atoms linked together. Cracking is the controlled art of snapping those strings into shorter, lighter pieces. In a fluid catalytic cracking unit, heavy gas oil is blasted with extremely fine catalyst powder at high temperature. The catalyst doesn't get used up. It simply speeds up the reaction so the long chains fracture into gasoline-sized molecules and other valuable lighter products. Another version, hydrocracking, adds hydrogen under pressure to do the same job, while also removing some impurities at the same time. Thanks to cracking, a refinery can turn what would have been low-value heavy oil into high-demand gasoline and diesel. Without it, we simply wouldn't have enough fuel to keep the world moving. Even after cracking, many of the molecules still aren't quite ready. Some burn too roughly in an engine. Others contain sulfur that would create harmful emissions. So the next stage quietly upgrades and cleans everything. Take naphtha, a middleweight fraction that isn't very useful on its own. It heads to a catalytic reformer where the molecules are gently rearranged. Straight chains are reshaped into rings and branches that burn more smoothly and resist knocking. This step raises the octane rating so your engine runs cleanly and efficiently. As a bonus, reforming also produces hydrogen that will be used later for cleaning other fuels. Meanwhile, sulfur and other impurities are tackled in hydrotreating units. Hydrogen is forced through the streams under pressure, reacting with sulfur to form hydrogen sulfide gas that can be safely captured and turned into solid sulfur, sometimes even sold for fertilizer. Modern refineries now produce ultra-low sulfur diesel with less than 15 parts per million of sulfur, a far cry from the smoky fuels of earlier decades. But that's only part of the story. The final step is blending, the refinery's quiet craftsmanship. Gasoline, for example, is never just one stream straight from the tower. It's a carefully measured cocktail of cracked gasoline, reformed gasoline, alkylate from another unit, plus tiny amounts of additives that prevent corrosion, improve cold weather performance, and control evaporation. Diesel and jet fuel get their own precise recipes too. In summer, the blends are adjusted to reduce vapor pressure. In winter, they're tweaked so they don't freeze. Every batch is lab tested in small engines to make sure it meets exact specifications before it ever leaves the gates. It's like a master chef tasting and adjusting a sauce until it's perfect. Except the sauce here will travel thousands of kilometers in pipelines and tankers to reach your local pump. Interestingly, today's sophisticated refining process grew from surprisingly humble beginnings. When Edwin Drake drilled the first commercial oil well in Pennsylvania in 1859, refineries were little more than simple stills boiling kerosene for lamps. The leftover heavy oil was often thrown away. Then the automobile arrived. Suddenly the world needed vast quantities of gasoline, and refiners had to invent cracking, reforming, and all the later steps we've just walked through. What started as lamp fuel became the backbone of modern transport in just a few decades. By the time the products are finished, the refinery has transformed one barrel of crude into a dozen different useful streams: fuels for cars, trucks, and planes, feedstocks for plastics, detergents, and even medicines, and heavy materials for roads and roofing. Nothing is wasted if it can be turned into something valuable. The entire operation runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, with thousands of kilometers of pipe, towering columns, and computer-controlled systems that look almost futuristic. Yet at its heart, the principle is beautifully simple. Separate what nature gave us, break what's too big, rearrange what's inefficient, clean what's impure, and blend it into exactly what we need. So the next time you fill your tank and feel that familiar click of the nozzle, pause for a second. That clear liquid is the end result of an ancient substance refined through heat, pressure, chemistry, and decades of engineering insight. If you enjoyed this video and want to understand more of the hidden processes behind the things we use every day, don't forget to subscribe and like to Decoding Every Day. Let me know in the comments, what everyday material or process should we decode next? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.